Imagine coming home after a long trip, dreaming of your own bed, only to find your key doesn't work and the locks have been changed. You look through the window and see complete strangers unpacking boxes in your living room. Your furniture, your photos, your entire life, gone. This isn't a nightmare. This is exactly what happened to Marcus, a hardworking veteran who just wanted to enjoy his well-earned peace. But his nightmare had a name: Nancy, the self-appointed queen of his homeowners association. Marcus had spent years saving up for his perfect home in a quiet, friendly-looking suburb. He loved the neighborhood, the tall oak trees, and the sense of community, or so he thought. From the moment he moved in, he felt an unwelcoming vibe from one person in particular. Nancy, the head of the HOA. She seemed to have a problem with everything Marcus did. His grass was a quarter-inch too long. His holiday decorations were tacky. She even complained about the color of his welcome mat. Marcus, being a calm and reasonable person, tried to comply. He'd nod, smile, and follow the absurd rules just to keep the peace. He was the only black man in the cul-de-sac, and he didn't want to give anyone a reason to cause trouble. But for Nancy, his very presence seemed to be the problem. The real trouble started when Marcus announced he was going on a 6-month deployment overseas. He was proud to serve his country again, even in a consulting role. He informed the HOA, left his contact information, and arranged for a landscaping service to maintain his property. He thought he had all his bases covered. He was wrong. For Nancy, Marcus's absence was not a reason to be a good neighbor. It was an opportunity. She had always wanted his house. 'Twas the best lot on the block, with a perfect view of the sunset, and she was determined to get it, one way or another. The moment Marcus's plane was in the air, Nancy put her sinister plan into motion. She started by filing a series of false complaints against his property. She claimed his yard was unkempt, even though the gardeners came twice a week. She reported a structural issue with his fence, which was brand new. She used her position as HOA president to stack violation after violation, creating a mountain of fines against Marcus's property. Of course, all the notices were sent to the house where no one was there to receive them. They piled up, unopened, just as she planned. Her goal was to create a paper trail that made it look like Marcus had abandoned his home and was a delinquent homeowner. Next, she moved on to the legal trickery. She hired a shady lawyer who specialized in finding loopholes in property law. Together, they forged documents and manipulated the HOA's bylaws. They initiated a foreclosure process based on the phony fines. Because Marcus was unreachable and presumed unresponsive, the process moved forward with terrifying speed. Nancy controlled the HOA board, so there was no one to question her actions. They pushed the foreclosure through a quiet, unnoticed auction. And who was the sole bidder? A shell company secretly owned by Nancy herself. For a ridiculously low price, she legally bought Marcus's house from right under him. It was the perfect crime, or so she thought. She had stolen a man's home without him even knowing. With the deed in her name, Nancy wasted no time. She hired a crew to clear out the house. They weren't movers. They were a clean-out crew. Marcus's belongings, his family photos, his military medals, his father's watch. Everything that held a memory were treated like trash. Some of it was sold, but most of it was just hauled away to the dump. It was a complete erasure of his existence in that home. Then she put the house back on the market, this time for its full, substantial value. She found a buyer quickly, a young, unsuspecting family excited to move into their dream home. She made a massive profit, and the family moved in, completely unaware of the crime that had just taken place. Nancy was smug, proud, and rich. She had won. 6 months later, Marcus returned. He was tired, but happy to be home. He took a taxi from the airport, anticipating a quiet evening. But as the taxi pulled up, his heart sank. He saw a different car in his driveway. He saw lights on and a kid's bicycle on his lawn. Confusion turned to dread. He tried his key. It didn't fit. He knocked on his own front door, and a man he'd never seen before answered, looking puzzled. "Can I help you?" the man asked. Marcus was speechless. I live here," he finally managed to say. The new owner showed him the deed, the legal paperwork, all with Nancy's signature on it. The horrifying reality began to sink in. His home, his life's savings, had been stolen. For a moment, panic set in, but Marcus wasn't just a homeowner. He was a veteran. He was trained to stay calm under pressure. He didn't yell or get angry. He thanked the new family, who were just as confused as he was, and told them he'd sort it out. His first call wasn't to Nancy. It was to his lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Jessica. As Marcus explained the situation, Jessica's expression went from disbelief to fury. She knew this was more than just a housing dispute. It was fraud, plain and simple. She told Marcus, "Don't worry, we're going to hit her where it hurts." Their secret weapon was something Nancy had completely forgotten about. The Service Members Civil Relief Act, or SCRA. This is a federal law that provides special protections for active duty military members. Among other things, it prevents foreclosure proceedings from happening without a court order while a service member is deployed. Nancy and her crooked lawyer had either ignored this law or were too arrogant to think it applied. This wasn't just an HOA rule violation, this was a federal crime. 10 minutes after Marcus's call to his lawyer, the first domino fell. Jessica fired off a cease and desist letter to Nancy that was so aggressive it practically smoked. It laid out the clear violation of the SCRA and detailed the severe federal penalties, including massive fines and prison time. The letter also went to the title company, the real estate agent who sold the house, and every member of the HOA board. Suddenly, everyone involved in Nancy's scheme realized they were accessories to a federal offense. The panic was immediate. The real estate agent's phone started ringing off the hook. The title company launched an internal investigation. The other HOA board members who had blindly trusted Nancy were horrified. They realized they could be held liable. The once mighty queen of the cul-de-sac was suddenly all alone. Her smug confidence evaporated, replaced by sheer terror. She tried to call her lawyer, but he was already trying to distance himself from the whole mess. Her perfect scam collapsed in less time than it takes to drink a cup of coffee. The legal battle was swift and brutal. Faced with the undeniable evidence and the threat of federal prosecution, Nancy's case crumbled. The court immediately voided the sale of the house. The deed was returned to Marcus, but it didn't stop there. Marcus sued Nancy personally for fraud, damages, and emotional distress. The court ordered her to pay for all of Marcus's legal fees, the cost of replacing all of his stolen belongings, and a significant amount in punitive damages for the sheer malice of her actions. The total sum was devastating, enough to force her to sell her own home, the one she was so proud of, just to pay him back. But the sweetest justice came from the community itself. Once the story got out, the entire neighborhood turned on her. The other HOA members called an emergency meeting and voted her out unanimously. She was ostracized, a pariah in the community she once ruled with an iron fist. The young family who had unknowingly bought Marcus's house were horrified and offered their deepest apologies. Marcus, being the good man he is, assured them it wasn't their fault. He even helped them find another home in a nearby neighborhood. In the end, Marcus got his house back. It was empty, but it was his. Slowly, with the support of his real neighbors, he began to rebuild his life. Nancy lost everything: her money, her position, her home, and her reputation. Her greed and prejudice led to her complete downfall. This story is a powerful reminder that the law protects those who serve, and that justice, though sometimes delayed, will find a way. It shows that the actions of one hateful person cannot extinguish the strength and integrity of a good one. Marcus came home to a nightmare, but he fought back and won, proving that the best revenge is not just living well, but ensuring that those who do wrong face the consequences. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story of justice, make sure to like, subscribe to Care and Conflict, and hit the bell for more.